Welcome to AgriTalk, and thank you for keeping it KTN Farmers TV. Today on AgriTalk, we'll be talking about matters agrochemicals and pesticide use, especially now that we are going to the planting season. And with me today in studio is Eric Mugu, who is the CEO of the Agrochemical Association of Kenya. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the Agrochemical Association of Kenya.
Agrochemical Association of Kenya is an umbrella association for responsible importers, manufacturers, users, and other stakeholders for the crop protection industry or plant protection industry. We have a membership of 78 members who constitute around 98% of the agrochemical industry. And our main responsibility is basically to look at the stewardship of products. Stewardship meaning that the innovations that come out of the industry are well utilized, they're in line with the government regulatory bodies, and also they're in line with the environment, human and ecological environment, meaning that they don't contaminate the environment and also guarantee safety to the users. So how do we do this? We do this by training farmers. First of all, having good manufacturing practices, good distribution practices where the products are, products come all over the world. And because of all over the world also, we have also industry linkages with CropLife International Organization. So when products are manufactured in all sectors, they are under the same standards. They move, they're shipped towards the country, they're transported towards the country. So the farmer in distribution reach each and every farmer in terms of repacking, even in smaller quantities, they must be done in good practices. We also follow how farmers use the products, how farmers buy the products, so that they don't contaminate the environment. And finally, when the farmers utilize the products, then how do they dispose of the containers? So basically, the whole life cycle management of the stewardship programs. Apart from that, also we advocate the government, particularly in trainings, having the right policies to create an enabling environment for the industry to do its practice, to give out the innovations to the industry.
Okay. As we head to the planting season, why is it important for farmers to prepare early enough for the planting season?
Yeah, it's important for farmers, first of all, to prepare early enough. One of the things, and I'm sure some are already doing ploughing, and sometimes those who are doing dry ploughing, others who use zero-tillage also, they're using technologies. We know you also use some of the technology, like particularly herbicides, to do zero-tillage, where you spray to reduce the weight and you plant. So you have to do early, because even the industry prepares to make sure that these innovations reach the farmers early enough because of the seasons. And also making sure that the farmers are prepared so that they get the right counterfeits. We understand, because of the integrity of the parcel, we might find that there's infiltration of counterfeit products, so that farmers must be sure that they have enough resources or they have talked to farmers to get the right inputs at the right time. And when we talk about the agro inputs, we're talking about seeds, we're talking about even including diesel sometimes, because they have to plow, fertilizers, and the right crop protection products. Because they come in at different stages. And sometimes the agro inputs, particularly the herbicides, may come earlier than the seeds, because if you're doing zero-tillage, then you have to spray before then you plow the seed. So there's need for early preparation, so that you make sure that you run out of stock, you have all the resources secured, that the season is ripe, and whatever, the only thing you're waiting for is the rain, that you are guaranteed that you're going to have it.
Talking of zero-tillage, if I'm doing a zero-tillage, if you compare zero-tillage and ploughing, you know, most of our farmers are small-scale farmers.
Yes.
So most of them do it manually.
Yes.
So what are the advantages, or what's the difference between now me doing it manually and maybe using agrochemicals?
If you are using zero-tillage, particularly if you're using herbicides, you are reducing the base. You are not disturbing the soil structure. In other words, you're also conserving, you're building up organic matter. Basically regenerative agriculture, so that the sustainability, the soil biology outside there. Now, a farmer there who is doing ploughing, you are exposing off the land, you are losing moisture. Of course, in a way, you are controlling weeds, but then you are losing quite a lot of moisture. Now, with the reduced moisture content and the climate change, then you find that you are not conserving the right moisture content that will guarantee germination. So the proponents of zero-tillage provides benefits that once you have built up a soil structure, and because you are not moving a lot with tractors, the soil biology is good, soil aeration, water holding capacity, because you are improving the organic, whatever little rain that you have, then it consolidates the water and conserves it for a longer period of time. than when you have opened up the fields for Zerotillage. But remember, these are technology, it's scientific, and everything is you must understand, and sometimes you also have to have equipment to do it, for particularly those who are practicing currently, and those who are doing it in smaller holder farmers, also are seeing it a benefit. So you're not opening up the land basically, and also managing weeds becomes more easier. Those who are doing manual weeding, apart from doing the manual weeding, because one is apart from the losing of the moisture, and then it's too expensive. It takes a lot of man hours and breaking backs. And you remember the issue, the discussion of children and women who basically do that work. But the technologies provides for you to relieve the children to go to school. They used to engage in other things, and you can use technology to do Zerotillage. But still, we have those farmers who prefer the manual opening up of the fields and planting, and the yield they get is that.
Why is it taking us too long maybe to adopt some of these technologies, especially the Zerotillage, with all these advantages?
I think it is the asymmetry of information, and some of the information is how the things into the public domain. Training farmers to do Zerotillage. There's behavior change that we need to instill and show farmers you can move in this direction. Also, the fragmentation of land. Others believe we used to plow our land, so we must continue plowing our land. They don't want to try new things. So there are a lot of things that impede uptake of innovation that we really need to work on as a nation. But when you look at also the fragmentation of land and everything else, some farmers believe by opening up land enough that weeds dry. It's a way of controlling weeds and probably preparing for the next season. That's what they do. But basically, the adoption of innovation in the country is slower, particularly in agriculture. And basically how the farmers were setting up, how the field has been perceived to be for the older people, and they're doing things in the older ways. So we need now to start doing like a transition. We bring in more youth because they're technology savvy, they can actually utilize, they can challenge status quo. Why are you playing? Why can't I use this technology so they can reduce the cost? But I believe with the changes in the climate change, people are going to rethink on the strategy and how they're going to do. Because when you look at the climate change, it brings a lot of vagaries and challenges the weather patterns. Traditionally, somebody will plow the land in January, and it's going to, like in the north, particularly where I come from, in the external, you find that everybody has plowed the land now. And is waiting for rains in April. Sometimes rain delay in April. So you have opened up land, you have animals to keep, they have nowhere to feed and everything else. So those are some of the things that are going to challenge farmers, and they're going to change the behavior. So farmers can look at it rather than opening up the field early enough. And also the desire to reduce the diesel consumed on land. Carbon emissions, probably, rather than plowing all these things, then I can use other technologies like herbicides. For instance, glyphosate, to spray the field, then we just go and plant.
Are there disadvantages maybe of using some of these chemicals?
Yeah, for chemicals, the benefits are immense. But one thing we have to understand, that pesticides are toxic. They're meant to kill the target. The target is not to kill human beings. The target is to kill unwanted pests, weeds. And therefore, care must be taken in terms of if you don't use the products, safety becomes paramount. So if you don't use products as per the label recommendations, remember, these pests are highly regulated. Their movement, even the movement that moved as dangerous goods, because safety must be guaranteed. And when the farmer gets the product, then he has to establish that he is using the right, protecting himself. He's also protecting the environment by using the right doses, applying to the right target. If you don't do that, then you are contaminating the environment. Then you are exposing even up to the consumers. If you use wrong application rates and you don't follow the pre-harvest intervals, then you are transferring, possible transfer of pesticide residues into the food system. So basically, they have a lot of, the challenge I will say that they need care. So if you are not going, you are going to be careless, what we suggest is that you don't use it, or leave it to the specialists. And what we have done as an industry to support farmers is that we are deploying what we call spray service providers. The spray service providers are specialized people who are in the field there, who have been trained on the proper handling of these pesticides, proper identification of pests and diseases, proper applicators, and they know what to do with the containers after application, meaning they complete our life cycle by returning the containers for final destruction. So that is the challenge, and that's the disadvantage of this. That the disadvantage of using pesticides, if they are mishandled, then being toxic in nature, they can contaminate the environment, which is something we don't want. However, they have greatest benefits in contributing to sustainability, in helping farmers achieve that. This is part of the technology. And all technologies, including the cameras we're using here, the transmissions we're using here, the waves have been tested. But if we become careless and we don't protect it, then we'll be exposing people to unnecessary waves. So basically, any innovations that have been deployed in the field to serve a particular purpose, it must be used responsibly. And that's basically why AAK is in existence. That how is the responsible use of these crop protection products in terms of farmer understanding how to use it. And the moment everybody does that, then we have no issues with crop protection products. And if we cannot guarantee that one, that's where we have challenges, and that's where the disadvantage will come from.
Okay. Let's say, for example, I've decided to try zero-tillage for the first time. When I'm going out to choose that herbicide,
yes,
what do I need to know? What do I need to look at?
Yeah, basically you need to look at, because you are going to spray what that product is going to do for you. The need for that product. You must establish the need. Do you really need that pesticide? You have decided that you want to go zero-tillage because you are seeing a constrained moisture going forward and you want to conserve, or you are building organic matter, or you are boiling your soil, regenerating your soil for a given period of time. And remember, others do it for a certain period, then they plow it again. They do a certain period, then they plow it again. It's just building the lies within the soil. You must know why you need that product. And if you know the essence of why, the essence of buying that product, then you know why, you know you need it. You go to the agrovet and you ask that you need a herbicide or a glyphosate-based product that is going to help you for that. The person at the counter will answer some of your questions. And one thing now you need to establish yourself is that product registered for that use? That's the most important thing. Is this product been approved by Pest Control Products Board for that particular use I want? Because there are no things that we want to be clever. We want to innovate around the recommendations. And that's what misuse constitutes. So the product has been registered for that particular purpose. The pesticides is in approved store. I mean, the one dispensing is approved by Pest Control Products Board and possibly been accredited by AAK because we have trained them and we know that they are not stocking pesticides. The second thing is, what rates am I going to use? Do you have the right equipment? Have you received what you should do and what you should not do? Like, we are going to maybe spray early in the morning or late in the evening. You have the right personal protective equipment and the withholding period, that animals should not go there and graze. You should keep away from children and things like those. Once you have all that information, then you acquire the product and you can transport it. And there's a way of transporting that product back. You don't just carry it and put it in the cot, however small it is. Then you have to separate it from food and everything else, and even declare, if you're using a public transport, declare that you have pest, and then they can be kept aside. And when you reach home, then you have to use it immediately. If you completely use it, then you have to take that container. And you rinse immediately after that. In your last knapsack you are spraying, you have to put the last eloquets, put in water, shake, rinse it 3 times. It's called triple rinsing, 3 times. And we believe we have done studies. If you triple rinse that product, you have cleaned it 99.9%. But we don't recommend that product to go back into the system for farmers to use. If you don't do that, then you build up. Pick an example like in Eldoret, where people have huge tracts of land that they're going to put on a plant, and you get a 200-liter drum. People will want to harvest rainwater with it, and that will be a source of contamination. So once you have finalized that one, you take that container, you destroy it, and you take it to empty pesticide container collection sites that you have distributed within the country, or a place where eventually it will be collected. And the Agrochemical Association of Kenya will come, collect the containers, and take them for safer disposal as per local regulations. That is NEMA and Pest Control Products recommendation.
Let's say, for example, I've gone and purchased a particular herbicide, and I followed the procedure you've given, transporting, how to use in the farm, how to make sure that I've completely used the chemical in that container until it's finished. Yeah. So how long should I take now before I come and plant my crop? Is there a grace period to give maybe the herbicides enough?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. Because now you're planting, if you're weeding the crop, probably it could be a month or something, because what you want to do is to desiccate the weeds. And once you desiccate the weeds, you'll find that the weeds have gone down, you can plant, and by the time the weeds emerge, your crop already is about managing the competition between the weeds and the desired crop. So it varies from crop to crop. Even when you are doing herbicides, you find recommendations that after you spray this product, you should not follow again with another crop of this species. So different herbicides will have different recommendations. So if you're using it for a pre-planned application, then you'll find the recommendations that will, it's not standard that you have to wait 1 month. But that is the information that a farmer needs to capture. That once you are going to use that product for wheat, for instance, then you have to read the contraindications. Say, if you are going to do it pre-planned for wheat, what else should follow? So you'll find all those recommendations have been put on the product label, because the moment the manufacturer is submitting a product for registration for use in zero-tillage application, then he has to put all the contraindications that you have to apply, wait for maybe 2 weeks, plant your crop, but you should not follow again with a crop of, let's say, beans or something like that. So you'll find all those, I'm using this as an example, those contraindications on the product label. And that is the part of the information that the farmer must go with. Yes, I need a herbicide to apply here. And after this 1 year, I'm going to apply maize. Maybe you're doing rotation. So what does this product say about applying maize? Is it clear? If it's clear, then those are the factors you base on buying that particular product.
Okay. Let's say, for example, my grandmother has gone to purchase this particular chemical at an agrovet.
Yeah.
So, because I've seen in some instances, someone opens and just gets anyone to sell the agrovet for them, as long as they've indicated the prices there. Is that an illegality, or do they have supposed to have a well-trained person to be dispensing these chemicals?
That's a good question, because that's one of the challenges that we have seen. If you look at the vet farmer, that they recommend that somebody must be trained and everything else. We have been doing it as a good practice, that we train them, and that has been part of the responsibility to training all those counter sales staff to have this. It has not been like a legal requirement per se in the previous discussions. But since we are reviewing the Act now, we have put requirements for a certificate, minimum certificate in agriculture, for somebody to understand, so that whenever you are prescribing, you know exactly what you understand the farmer problems. Previously, there wasn't. It was you can go open up a shop, and many farmers were confused at that stage, because she goes, she buys, she tells it, because this guy wants to sell. So whatever problem you have, you cannot explain the pest. Probably he doesn't have time to listen to you. Even though the information is on the product label, probably you might not find time to read the entire product label, because particularly for small packs. So you need somebody who will understand and be with you and break down the information for you. So in the new bill and the regulations that were proceeding to discussions in Parliament, then that it will be a legal requirement that you must have somebody who has a specific qualification to prescribe over the counter.
So also on the same use of pesticides and pesticides, are there pesticides that you cannot use and herbicides that you cannot use with the same pesticides?
Yes, I mean, those, it's good you are raising this issue, because those, whenever you go to a product store or an agrovet, you find that different products behave, they have different characteristics, because of the products, the characteristics are intrinsic in them, they're inside, that this product must not follow the other one. This product will not be followed. So if you're using herbicides, and you find that you want to put also fertilizers, some fertilizer liquid, and you want, or an insecticide, you find that there's some products that you will not mix with copper, for instance. Yeah? So all those things are under contraindication stage. When you read the product label, the proper guidelines, this product cannot be mixed with this. This product you have to wait for this period before you plant. This product you must wait for this period before you harvest, the pre-harvest intervals. So all of them are put together in a product label that is attached on the product. So it is paramount that the only reference point for a farmer, and even the agrovet, is that product label, because it contains everything that is in the product dossier in a language that he can understand. And that language comes in English and Swahili. So even it's difficult to put in mother tongues for each and every person, but eventually probably that's one of these findings. In South Africa, they have quite a lot of languages, and they have those particular labels. But in Kenya, we thought, because Swahili being a national language and everything else, and since we are buying over the counter, being a regulated product, somebody will explain to you on how to use it.
Okay. I've also had complaints of when it comes to those labels. They're saying the font is too small. Sometimes reading for the older people is a little bit difficult. Yeah,
true. You find particularly in Kenya, our farming is fragmented. Yes. And one thing, because 1 liter, you find that is too big, farmers cannot afford. And therefore, there was business case to develop small packs, 500, 200 mils, even up to 50. And when you go to certain fonts, too small to be read. But we have insertion, because the label, because you cannot put on the label, the law requires that in every pack you have attached an additional leaflet that talks about all those things, as part of the label. So if that one is not happening, then people are contravening it. But if you go to each and ask for it, it is available and it can assist you to do it. Because the small packs is difficult for you to feed, to put on a label and the eyes, particularly for the older generation, they will not be able to read that. Maybe you may need a glass. But there's a bigger document that is also attached as an insertion, either on top of the cups, and you can open it and read.
Earlier on, you had indicated that AAK also conducts trainings.
Yes.
How often are these trainings? And if I want to attend one, where do I go to find, or how can I know where these trainings are?
AAK conducts trainings on schedules. One will be through other partners, if we're training the spray service providers. And also we train our farmer trainers, particularly on the responsible use of products. So these ones we go for, it's continuous. Every week there's a program for training farmers, working with county governments. As I told you, whenever we go to each and every county, we take the training schedules they have. We have another one which is demand-driven, being asked by certain value chains and everything else. So whenever you want a training, it's just drop an email to info@agrochem.co.ke, or you can call AAK and they can tell you when the next training will be happening in your region.
So AAK has branches countrywide?
We don't have branches. We have an office in Nairobi here, but we have schedules with trainings with different partners and county governments all over the country. So as I told you, most of the trainings are demand-driven. We get requests from, let's say, Kakamega County. We want to have this farmer training on responsible use, or National Irrigation Board will ask us for training, and whereas all those things, we sit together and plan so that we optimize, considering that we are set up with a lean distributed, and we are all over working with county governments. The county government extension staff are part of our trainers, so we train together.
All right. Earlier on, you had also talked about that also AAK has spray service providers.
Yes.
How do you arrive at a spray service provider? What do you look at to identify me as a potential?
Yeah, we have a recruitment strategy for the spray service provider and requirements. That first of all, you must be a farmer. You must be a farmer. The reason why you need to be a farmer and in that part of the community is that you understand part of the problems that farmers are facing. And two, you must, or you should also be over 18 years and above. You should have the business acumen. You should be going into as a business, not just doing it as part of the training, because remember, we want sustainability. And under certain instances, we require that you should be having something like a knapsack sprayer, a pump, and everything else, so that it's faster for you to go and provide the service than anything else. In certain circumstances, when we have resources, then we can buy you and equip you with the right skills. So what we have done with the spray, once we identify you, then we put you together into clusters, region of 5 or 10 people. We train you on the technical aspect of application, and that constitutes buying, taking care of the plant, identifying pests, different application techniques in terms of fungicides and insecticides, how we're going to spray, and the choice of products. And immediately you finish that, you're given a certificate by Pest Control Products Board and PCP, and you are regulated. Now we have a requirement that SSPs, spray service products, must be registered with pest control products, starting in the new PCPB bill, so that we can be known and they'll be doing it as a service and are regulated, so that we know whenever they make mistakes. Once you do that, then we give you business skills, that you must run this process as a business knowledge if you are doing extension. And the whole purpose is for you to augment the extension staff, that they can also provide extension and support farmers at that level at a fee, and the fee makes it more sustainable. And beyond that, we are keeping them with knowledge so that they go beyond just looking for pests and disease. There are certain areas we cannot do. We are thinking of that they can also look at soils, for instance. People talk about soils, so doing soil testing and bringing it so that they have enough to do when they're moving up.
Okay, so how long does a training take?
A training takes a week. It takes a week, and we tell them we graduate. By graduation, we are creating linkages for them to the county governments, to the value chains, and also to the agrovets. Because remember, they can also be used to support the agrovets in terms of prescribing and providing that service in a region. We have seen very well, like in the potato industry, they are well utilized. In the cereal growers association, have a team of them, And county governments, we are linking them with the help of Kenya Crops and Dairy programs. In Kisumu, in Kisii and Homa Bay, we have active graduation ongoing now, linking them, that making sure that these people are known and established. And above all, we have a list of all with the names. And we continuously do a refresher course every year. We find them, how much have you done? How many acreage have you done? How many farmers have you reached? If we see whether they are creating the necessary impact outside there so that farmers can access this as an alternative way and remove them from totally spraying, and therefore they can run their fields more professional.
We'll take a short commercial break, but we'll be back in a few. For our viewers back at home today, we're talking about use of agrochemicals and pesticides, especially now that farmers are preparing for the planting season. So with me today in studio is Eric Mugu, who is the CEO of the Agrochemical Association of Kenya. So we'll be taking a short commercial break, but we'll be back in a few. Welcome back to AgriTalk, and thank you for keeping it KTN Farmers TV. Today on AgriTalk, we are talking about the use of agrochemicals and pesticides, especially now that farmers are preparing for the planting season. Eric, before we went on the break, we were talking about the spray service providers. Is a spray service provider also allowed to train others within their locality?
First of all, the spray service provider goes through a curriculum that has been developed and approved and agreed between the regulator and us. It takes 7 days. While the spray service provider may be in the field there, can train and talk to farmers and impart knowledge to farmers, he may not train other spray service providers to replicate that. So we have TOTs for spray service providers. That one will be in a position to train more SSPs there. But a trained SSP will be able to sort out farmers' problem. Yeah, including training farmers and giving them basic information, but not necessarily training in terms of, because they are given an exam and they have to pass. They have to demonstrate a 60% pass mark for them to be spray service providers.
Also, when you train some of these individuals, do you also train them on how maybe to help farmers understand how to take care of their soils, how often they need to do their soil tests, what fertilizers maybe their pieces of land needs?
We try to make them more general, such that they can sort out farmers' problems, as I mentioned, including the need for soil testing, for instance. And that's the reason why we want to add on as a way that they can also pick samples for soil testing and send it to the required laboratory. And good agricultural practice in general, including site selection, agronomy, basic agriculture, because it contributes to disease and pest development. So they are equipped with that knowledge. So they should be in a position to advise the farmer whenever they are declining yields and are not pest related, that this requires soil sampling if there is a problem related for nutrition, whether to see whether the soil has a problem in terms of certain nutrients or certain nutrients have been locked down. So, and the liming becomes very important. That's why we are thinking about then how do we make this SSP wholesome so that he can do pest control, he can also do soil testing, because we have a lot of now need for soil testing and declining yields. And also he can do something in terms of when animal feeds come, things that they can do without necessarily injuring the profession, let's say vet. So we are making them wholesome. But generally the content of training they get should be in a position to sort out farmers and advise the farmers on all good agricultural practices on the field to improve production. It's not only for application of pesticides, but although that's the main thing, but they also have general knowledge of what is ailing a crop.
Okay.
Yeah.
But have you ever had instances whereby maybe a spray service provider doesn't really follow what he was taught and decides to do his own things, maybe doesn't collect the containers at the end of the spray? What are the consequences?
Yeah, I've not seen what I've seen. What the challenge we have basically with spray service providers is that one is not something an imaginary thing. It's practical that it can happen that a spray service provider may not also follow. People sometimes even do things professionally. They're professional, but they do things in the wrong way. So we are not saying that they are immune against that. But we have not seen a reported case. What we have seen in cases is sometimes when they go to the field, you have trained 40 service providers in a given region. Then when you go back to follow up, you find that 20. There's attrition naturally. And because competition is coming, they want fields. Probably the farmers, the demand was not well created for the farmers. Farmers feel they can do it for their own. and in the event they go do ride motorbikes or get employment somewhere else. That's when you have seen, but you have not seen an area where a service provider has converted. But in the event that we find that the spray service provider has contravened the training, and one of the things that we'll take very seriously is that he never respected labor recommendations, particularly for us. Labor recommendations, that if that mistake, if retraining cannot happen, then we'll remove him from the list of the spray service providers that we have, so that we train more that really will respect the integrity of the recommendations on the product level.
Okay. When it comes to personal protective equipment, whose responsibility is it to? Is it the farmer's responsibility? Is it AAK responsibility to provide them with personal protective equipment? Are there particular, maybe, chemicals that come with either gloves because of maybe they are too dangerous?
What we have done in the registration of products, when the manufacturers submit dossiers for registration of products, then based on the classification of the product in toxicity, how toxic product is, and there are various categories, then it comes under the label, primary label, you'll find the recommendations under that in form of pictograms on what personal protective equipment you'll put before and after, and when you are spraying. So now, answering your question, that based on that recommendation, this is the personal protective equipment, it means that that liability has been transferred to the farmer. That you need, and that's why I mentioned from the beginning, if you need to do that, you have to check that you are well protected. Safety comes first. That, okay, you check, you look at this product, I want to use this product in terms of toxicity. Do I have this required personal protective equipment? Can I improvise on what I have to put on? Because sometimes it's possible to improvise, just to have minimal submission. But that responsibility is been left to the farmer. And we know the challenges that come with that the farmer, in terms of affordability, the farmer, and that's what one of the things that SSPs want to address, because the SSP are equipped with personal protective equipment. When you look at a farmer who wants to spray a small place, like half an acre, and he requires to buy a PPE, and probably he needs a product for 50 mils, and the personal protective equipment goes at 1,500, and maybe the product is 200 shillings. Now you see the personal equipment is more expensive than the small one. And those are the challenges that AAK is currently trying to. While it's not our responsibility to provide that, but we are trying to work with stakeholders in the industry. Then how do we make personal protective equipment easily accessible? And we've been working with bodies like FAO. How do we accelerate personal protective equipment adoption by smallholder farmers? One is access, distribution. How do we make sure that incentives we provide in each every shop, so that whenever farmers buy this product, it gets alongside with personal protective equipment, buys. Companies, out of the subted goodwill, they do promotion and they provide personal protective equipment, but it's not their responsibility. You'll find that we're having these, rather than making T-shirts for this, we sell personal protective equipment and take it to tomato farmers who are spraying there, or potato farmers who are spraying there. Sometimes that goodwill, companies will try to do that. But it is the responsibility of all of us to make sure that this one is high. Good standards of PPE exist. That's what we're currently engaging with KEBS, with other stakeholders to make the standards. We're talking with Rivertex. How do we make these things easier? And apparel industry. And those manufacturers, what incentives do you need from government so that we can advocate for it? Those stockists, what will you need for you to store these PPEs so that we make them cheaper, the way we did for masks during COVID situation? If we do a campaign like that, then we'll find that the protection of farmers increases. In terms of responsibility, who is responsible? I think all of us are responsible in terms of the industry accelerating, doing that. Government trying to look at ways of bringing this, the apparel industry and those who are manufacturing, making sure that it's happening. The stock is there, also developing interest in stocking some of the personal protective equipment. Although we have done studies again to look at the behavior, we call it PPE landscaping from farmers, and we realize that it's a behavior issue, apart from access and affordability. Also, that it's not comfortable. People who have used these products for a long time, why do you want to put on PPEs and everything? And also it goes into time of application. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable, but you are applying during lunchtime. You need to apply in the morning and in the afternoons, as the label says. So all those things we're discussing them and seeing, well, how can we support in terms of programs, in terms of policies that will support farmer adoption of personal protective equipment. Is there any other material that's locally available other than cotton that can be utilized? Those are the things that we're engaging with the industry, and a lot of research is going into it and communication. Okay.
Also, when it comes to agrochemicals, just like there are drugs, I cannot go to the shelf in a pharmacy and buy them from across the counter.
Yes.
Are there such chemicals in agrochemicals that I cannot buy also from the counter?
Yeah, we have products. Products are basically classified. Pest control products board classifies products, and I think this question will have been answered clearly with pest control products, where we have restricted class, products that have been restricted, and products that are under general agricultural class. They are agents for use for agriculture, which you will find them in agrovets. We have products like phosphine gas that does fumigation. That's a restricted class that needs specialized people to use it. So those things exist, and whenever you are importing that product, then you must get that certification from those guys, professionals who are doing it. Like very soon we'll be doing fumigation for flowers going out. That's a pest control product. It's doing its purpose, but it cannot be done by a farmer in the village. So that category is just like the pharmacy. It's restricted. It can only be done by professionals. And even certain public health products, in terms of indoor residual sprays, it's done by professionals with those service providers. And that's how we thought that even spray service providers will do. The public health applicators also will benefit, because they are professionally trained how to spray a building like this, how to fumigate a building like this for mosquito, for cockroach, and everything else. It may not be a problem for a smallholder farmer. Seated there who doesn't know how to fumigate and use these products. And basically all this is aimed at making sure that the products are used more responsibly and in line with what the label recommends.
Okay. Agriculture is also a devolved function.
Yes.
When we talk about these trainings, do you also work with the county governments when it comes to trainings?
Yes. We don't go to any county government without talking to farmers. We consolidate, because remember when there were national government, though we are still working with the national government. We had a coordination mechanism for trainings, but with devolution now, those trainers went into the county governments. So right now we are working with each and every county government, and now we are working with the sector working groups to make sure that we are mainstream within our trainings within the county governments, and even the county governments can have their bespoke requirements from us directly. Come and train us on this one. So anything that is done in the county government must be done with coordination and working with the county government executives. Okay. Yeah.
If you may rank, or you may give us in a scale of 1 to 10, yeah, or 1 to 50, where do you think we are as a country when it comes to safe use of agrochemicals and pesticides?
Where 1 means what?
Very poor.
I will say in terms, and I will defend my answers, in terms of the general governance of pesticides, I'll rank a 5. In other words, we have a regulatory system in place, which is good, which we follow, and everything else. In terms of farmer awareness, in terms of pest control, I will put 3.5 to 4. Farmers are aware. In terms of behavior, and that's the missing link, and the value chains, and that's what the bill seems to address, is like now we realize that there are issues of where we have people prescribing and they have no knowledge in agriculture, and which we are improving. So based on that, I'll give them a 3 or 2.5. That's where we are not doing very well. Changing the behavior. The farmers have been trained. If you do a study, even as KTN, and get the knowledge of pesticides in this country, 99%. But then on the other side, when you go and look at the behavior of farmers, and say, are these trainings geared towards changing the farmer? You'll find that farmers, then the behavior you'll score very poorly. Why? Is that the knowledge is too much to the level the farmers are immune to that. They're not changing the behavior. And that's why we are looking at which are these behavioral complexities that are making farmers not to change behavior. And that's what we are currently addressing. Understanding, we are working with the psychologists, saying, how do we change the behavior of farmers? How can we demonstrate? And that one of the things that we have done through that is by quantifying the damage. I mean, if this is what you don't do, we have videos. We are going into a digital strategy. We are showing farmers exactly how to do it, rather than going to train them and showing them how to do it. And practically, even we are thinking while you're going, how do we utilize the institutions there to change the behavior of farmers? But in terms of general pesticides awareness in this country, it's very high, extremely high. Governance, rules, procedures, being there, very high. And also now, during that time of training within the national government, there were a lot of things happening within the counties. I mean, within the various respective regions, the national government was coordinating. And that's what we are currently seeking through the national government and county government coordination mechanism. How do we all come together? And where we are talking about various platforms that are going to change the paradigm, that sustainable pesticide management framework, We want to put these people together so they can speak within one voice. And we're believing that the recent launch of the Universal and Migratory Pest Strategy might provide an opportunity for that, so that we look at these things wholesomely together. And the idea is not about generating more knowledge in terms of this pest, but changing all the behavior of smallholder farmers. You will find a lot of farmers have a lot of information. Go to the growing regions and ask them questions. Tell them, but look at the behavior. With this, and then look at the behavior that guy is doing. Then you realize what is the problem. We have the information, but we are not implementing. And that is the challenge that we are having currently.
Still on the behavior, we've had cases whereby farmers have two sets of crops.
Yes.
So they grow either tomatoes for home consumption and tomatoes for the market. So this one for the market, you can even spray today in the evening, and tomorrow is harvesting to send it to the market.
That's a perfect example of what we're saying.
So are there consequences for if we can pinpoint and say this farmer has been doing this for the longest time, putting other people in danger by harvesting a crop that...
Apparently, in the export market, we have traceability system, okay, whereby we can get products from Kaitani farm, your farm, that have exceeded these residues, okay, based on what, let's say, if Codex MRL says you should not exceed 5 parts per million, then yours was 7, and then you get a first, they notify you. The second, the third one, well, what is the problem? Are you using the product wrongly? What is the issue? They can trace back to the farm and change what you're doing. There is a punishment mechanism. Now, that farmer who is seated there, probably that product is for his own consumption. He knows the issues of if you don't use the pesticides well and everything else. And even if they spray their pesticides, they will wait. Atakwambia, hiyo sitakupea. Hii bado nilipiga dawa jana mpaka siku 10 ziishe. You know, because he knows you. But because a broker comes in from other side, I want vegetables, I have a market in Nairobi, attend to take it in schools, then he will look back and say, who is seeing me? Even if you tell that broker, please, this one, when you pay, you want money. That is the behavior we are meaning. So it's criminal. But then we have no law to criminalize them, not unless they are arrested. Because the value chain, this broker will sell, take it to Wakulima market, somebody else will buy from Wakulima market, take it to the hotels, to the schools where they are taking it, but there's no traceability to check. But if we had traceability, then we will find that that farmer will not do that. And that's something that we want to work out. And that's why the government and the industry came up with KS 1758 as a standard, a local standard. And the second thing is that on Wednesday, there will be a food safety policy discussion, national validation section. And those are the things that seek to address these problems. And probably after that, and if it's well implemented, then we'll start finding local supermarkets, local hotels, start demanding for standards. Okay, my kales, where did you grow it? Can I trace back to the farmer? And if we implement that, you will totally see a paradigm shift in this country.
The government is also implementing a new education curriculum, the CBC. As an industry, are you working with the Ministry of Agriculture, of Education, maybe to introduce some of these lessons in school early enough?
Yeah, actually, the opportunity we see is even the introduction of 4K clubs and the Young Farmers Association in secondary school. That's a good starting point before we can escalate down. So that if these will be the young farmers, these are the future generation. So if first of all we give them the first, and because it will be a membership organization, I believe we need to escalate this and relook at our curriculum in agriculture or social studies in primary school. And therefore, first of all, integrity and the issues of behavior and following the right things. Then before we say, for your food, this is how you need to grow it. Nutrition, put it in the curriculum so that whenever we are growing up, that farmer will protect the rest of the generation with responsibility. And those are the opportunities we see. Even at the university level, we are trying to open up and trying to align so that they don't just come out, but they need to understand the food safety, whose responsibility is the responsibility for everybody else. While the government may put up regulations and everything else, it is finally your behavior that will touch. If you're the weakest link into the food safety system, assuming you are the farmer and you are not disclosing what you are putting in there, then you are breaking the entire efforts with the food safety chain. And basically, as you say, those are the opportunities that for the farmer, for the next farmer, the future farmers, we need also to invest there while we address the current issues that we are doing. So we'll go to universities, we'll go to schools to make sure that our SSP module we are actually escalating it to go into the TVETs, for instance, curriculum, so that people understand that you are an agricultural graduate from a technical university, from the university, but you understand the basics and what you need to do at each and every level. And even take it to basic courses, because food is becoming more important. It's closer to health. It's closer to everything else. And because we are so close to food, that this knowledge must be with everybody else, not necessarily those guys who are producing there. And that's why the discussion between the Ministry of Health and Agriculture realized that the responsibility for food safety doesn't end with one ministry. It's every person's responsibility. So as an agro industry, we'll continue participating in our youth endeavors and young generation youth, how to accelerate them. We bring them, and women, bring them on the food safety discussions as we go along.
Okay. Even talking about food safety discussions, earlier on you talked about safe ways of disposing containers that the farmers are done with. Let's say, for example, I cannot find, because you said there are collection centers in some places. So if I can't tell where the collection center is, what other means do I have to dispose that container? Because I've seen the small ones.
Yeah. They're littered all over, and that's the challenge that we have. So if you go to, and that's also another challenge, particularly smallholder farmers. When you find the organized farmers, they have sustainable collection centers. Now, for smallholder farmers, what we are talking about, and in fact, is we have created, and every time we create based on a demand, that we create collection centers. Sometimes the challenge is you put a container there for collection of those empty pesticides container. Nobody brings. You call farmers for meetings to tell them, they tell me, no, where are you taking them? You have to pay us, coin for us to bring. So it becomes a bit more frustrating because now payment is everything. So what are we doing to address that problem? What we have done is that we want to work with other sectors because we have the extended producer responsibility as a requirement that comes in. But remember us, we started before even the extended producer responsibility regulations came in. So we want to work with various collections, those people who are doing recycling, so that, because they are collecting, so that we can set up sustainable collection centers where the farmer has. So in the event that the farmer doesn't have anything else, what we tell him to do is to go and take it back. Wash it, make it unusable. Next time you go buy a product, take it back to the agrovet. Then the agrovet will take it back to, will ask the owner of the product to come for his containers. Or he will tell one of those, or he will call us, and then we'll collect the container. But there's no mechanism now of the way the farmer is going to dispose it. It must be taken back for safer destruction, because the only approved destruction methods, we have 1 or 2 destruction centers that have been given the authority to do that. So the farmer cannot win, not unless he's going to throw it and contaminate pit latrines and everything else, or bury. We are not recommending that. Immediately you finish, you can improvise your own plastic, bigger from Elianto, these ones that have been used, safe ones, put them in, carry it, take it to the agrovet, and the agrovet will tell you what to do. If you miss collection centers from your centers, because agrovets are also coming up, markets are also coming up. We may not be at par in terms of sending the collection centers, but there are mechanisms of them they can reach us for us to collect. We collect for everyone: coffee farms, wheat, everything, smallholder farmers, horticulture exporters. So all of them, if they are consolidated, and we know there's a challenge for smallholder farmers who are smaller and distributed differently, but there are mechanisms of collecting it.
Okay. I also understand you work very closely with Markup, the Market Access program. Maybe tell us a little bit about this partnership that you have works.
Yeah, we work with the Markup and many other institutions that support farmer knowledge training in terms of outreach programs. And most importantly, let me talk about this one, where we are currently doing, is that they supported in terms of reaching farmers. They realize also there is potential. They are putting also a lot of money in terms of training farmers. There is no associated behavior change, but there's a way we can help farmers in terms of disseminating the knowledge. Farmers require information. And if what we are doing currently can impact our farmer, 3, 4, 5 farmers, and then they can also change the rest of the farmers, they are doing that. We're also training farmers and also looking at the digital platforms, because farmers are also going digital. And they're supporting those initiatives to do that. Others are supporting the acceleration and adoption of spray service providers. Others, apart from the markup, although you will specifically markup, they're also supporting the law. We might have proper governance of these particular institutions. But most importantly, that how do we change the behavior of farmers? How do we equip the farmers with the right knowledge for them to improve productivity and become more competitive, for them to access markets, particularly high-value markets like export markets and even domestic markets, by producing the right food, providing the right protocols, or protocols that can help them. So through markup and the support from organizations like UNIDO, then we are able to access quite a lot of farmers, consolidate efforts in terms of the various touch points we can reach farmers to change behavior. Because the focus is that farmer benefiting from the innovations, but not innovations destroying the farm.
Okay. As we wind up, we've had a lot of noise about pesticide use and agrochemicals.
Yeah.
As a country, can we survive without agrochemicals and pesticides? From where you sit?
From what I have seen and borrowing from the recent episodes, I don't think Kenya can survive without pesticides. You realize what happened in Sri Lanka. We cannot be overemphasized, where they thought that they can make certain decisions, but you could see probably. And one of the impacts, we'll see that immediately we stop that. Then it means what we have created is that we have created a market. Farmers will continue producing, by the way. Farmers will continue, and they will now be using counterfeit products that are coming from neighboring countries. And therefore, you will be exposing the country into risks, because now you will have rendered the authority to regulate presence null and void. You will continue eating products that have been imported from other countries that are still using pesticides. Malaria will not be controlled. Locusts will not be controlled. You will not see this express highway, because the resources will go in buying food. The Big Four agenda will crumble, because there will be no raw materials to manufacture. Because our manufacturing is basically agriculture-based. Employment will be tumbled, because if farmers cannot export because they cannot produce, then Kenya becomes unattractive for investments and everything else. So when you look at the discussion of pesticides, what we need to be talking about, how then do we improve? Understanding what the role of pesticides and what pesticides are. How can we improve the governance of pesticides? At national level, we are doing well. How do we harmonize the region, in East African region, so that we can say, now, European Union is 28 countries. Kenya, we are one country, and we want to. Let's harmonize this so that we can actually implement and negotiate with EU. How can we talk as African Union and have one standards for pesticides? That's when we're going to make us access to markets. We are going to improve intertrade between Kenya and Uganda. We are not going to say that Uganda is banning. If Kenya bans a product now and it's not banned in Uganda, what happens? And that product is owned by farmers. It will come here. So we'll be a country being run by counterfeit products in terms of food safety. The issue, what we are lodging, validating on Wednesday, will be useless. The KS 1758 standard will be useless. Our Kenyan export market in Europe will go to zero, because we will not be in a position to demonstrate to EU that we have a governance system.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eric, for this conversation.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you sparing time to be here with us.
Thank you very much, and always we appreciate KTN and continue providing us this opportunity, because the media in our strategy is going to play a key role because of your math and your different digital strategies that we want to leverage on, so that the aim is to empower the farmers. Yeah. Thank you very much.
For our viewers back at home, that is it from us today. Until next time, goodbye.